Geeks and Gamers, Matt Lemke here with 2Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com, and today we have a Kickstarter preview for you on Looting Atlantis from Shoot Again Games. This is currently live on Kickstarter, and what we're not going to do is do a full walkthrough / playthrough of the game, because Shoot Again Games has an excellent video on all the game mechanics, and they cover everything very in depth, and they're very thorough with their videos, so I don't feel that I need to take this time to teach you how to play. What we're instead going to do is we're going to cut to the board, and we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about some of the key concepts of the game, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to share why I think or don't think you should buy into their Kickstarter. Okay, so this is the Looting Atlantis board. As you can see, there's 4 different corners to the board, 3 of which have different names on them. You have Mycenae, Egypt, and China, all of which are older countries. Now, the premise of the game is that the island of Atlantis is having an eruption and it's exploding. And you are one of these little pawns, which actually is changed quite a bit. These are air cars, Atlantis, and science fiction, futuristic technology in the ancient world. So you're flying around Atlantis, trying to gather as much. Well, we'll simplify it, as many points as you can before you escape. Now, there are a lot of things that can go on here in the game. You might notice that there's a different number here in each corner. And each of those numbers is a point reference. So if you're the first one to escape and you go to Egypt, you get 40 points. Now nobody else can go to Egypt. So if you're playing this as a 4-player game, clearly if you want the bonus points to swing your score, you want to be one of the first 3 to get off the board. Now, the lava markers are kind of like your clock. Every player on every turn takes a lava marker at the start of their turn, and they place it in one of these circles on the board or one of these little city segments. And by doing that, let's say it was my turn to place, I would eliminate all these cards from the possibility. And we'll get to why that's important in a minute. So basically, if you look at the clock for a second, and just the clock, there's an equal amount here. There's 4, 7, 4, 7. So basically, before you get to the outlying cities within Atlantis, you have 28 lava markers you can place. Now that's not entirely true, because as you can see here, this player decided that they were going to start destroying the city to speed up the game. When there are all of these are filled, or there are no cards left, the game comes to an end. Now that's important, because you figure with 4 players, you have basically 28 turns before you start destroying the city, or as little as 5. Now, when you burn a city, let's say lava hits this guy, the guy's got to take time out, and he's got to replace his car. Which we have never actually had happen, so I don't really know how that affects the game. But what I want to share now is the importance of the cards. Well, not all of the strategy, but a lot of strategy and tactics comes in these cards. And we will zoom in a little bit, and we're just going to take a look at these up real close. Move up here so you can read them. The quantum nullifier, and you might notice here that it says 1-to-1. Well, if you have one of these green quantum nullifier cards, you get 1 point. If you have 12, you get 144. Now, what I didn't do, and then these symbols can come into play too in your scoring, which they go over very well in the demo from Shoot Again Games that's on the Kickstarter. Same thing with all these different ones. Now, the Unified Field Generator, if you have a set of the colors, it actually changes their value. You have 4 points or you have 20 points for each one of those. So if you have green, red, blue, and a yellow, this card is worth 20 points instead of 4. Now again, as you can see, there's certain cards have the multipliers on them, and then there's 2 cards that do not, but they do. Oops, let me move that up here a little bit. The yellow card kind of has the largest curve to it, I believe, because it goes to 10 cards and it ends up worth almost 200 points. It is also the card that you might most likely use during the game, in my opinion. But we'll get into that in a minute. Now, all of these cards have text on them with an ability. For example, this one has discard this card to change the lava placement of another player. So let's say a player is getting ready to burn your car. You can move the lava placement to burn their car. Touche, right? The yellow cards, the fusion batteries, they allow you to take an extra ability or an extra action every turn, not an extra ability, which technically can be using an ability. And the quantum nullifier has discard the sorry, I'm getting adjusted to my new glasses. I'll just use the camera, what the heck. Discard this card to your current location to stop the effect played by another player. The player gets to keep the negated card and does not count as an equipment card played. So that can be a pretty good one. And then there's 2 that are just worth points. And I'm going to go ahead and grab this one real quick to show you that there's 2 different symbols on the top of this card underneath the mass energy converter. Oh, I didn't notice that before. They're even that's funny. Their text is even different. Not to mention there's different art. Now, this is how you score them. These become multipliers. So if you have 2 of the circles instead of the dots, you would multiply all the dark black dots to be, or they would all be worth 15 points. And if you have 3 of these, all of them would be worth 20 points. Now, this card has the ability to just discard this card to your current location to choose any other card at your location. So, well, we'll come back to that in a second, and we'll review that. Now, this one's actually really kind of good. You give this card to another player at your current location and take any card of their choice from them. So you have to end up in the same city spot, basically, as the other player. But since all the cards are played face up in front of you, you can take any one of the cards that they have, which could be a huge point swing. For example, let's say you're at 9 cards and you take one of their yellow cards to put you at 10. It gives you an extra 70 points. And then, okay, now we're going to come back here to this card. So we're going to zoom out so that you can see everything as it's going on. So you discard this card to your current location. Let's say I am here. And then I choose any other card. Now when you discard, it'll go on the bottom of the pile. And then I can take any one of these. So let's say I take a mental amplifier. Now that pretty much concludes everything that I think you need to know to understand the game. And we're going to go back and we're going to sit down and I'm going to talk with you about some of the different concepts to the game. Okay, so what do I think of looting Atlantis? Well, I'm going to start by saying the very first time I set up the game, I was rather underwhelmed. I looked at this and I'm like, what is there to the game? And then we started to play, and I was absolutely overwhelmed with the strategies and the decisions that needed to be made. There is actually quite a bit of thinking in this game. I mean, It's really basic when you think about it. You have some cards with some special abilities. You have lava tokens that are effectively a clock. And you have cars that you move around the board and escape Atlantis with by gathering as much equipment. And I was just like, there's nothing to it. There's a lot of thinking. You have to think about how many points you have, how many points your opponent has. You have to think about where am I going to go to get to my next cards, or am I going to steal it from my opponent? Am I going to be nice to my opponent? Those are all things you have to think about. Now, the very first time we played, it was just me and my wife. And we played very nice. We just went around the board and we filled everything slowly. And basically, we got all the cards off before Atlantis was fully destroyed by lava. I think that took us about 35 minutes to play the game. The second time we played, it was 3 people. It was my wife and daughter and myself. And the game scaled very well. The difference of 3 people playing, it actually picks up the pace, but it also increases the amount of strategy and the things that are going on, the things you have to be coherent of. You have to know who has this, who has that. If I do this, are they going to retaliate? Which is actually, in my line of thinking, it's kind of a design flaw. I don't think they ever intended for Looting Atlantis to be a cooperative, semi-cooperative, or backstabbing game. And it is actually all 3. It is all 3, which is actually a very difficult thing to do. And then we played again with one of my other children, one of my sons, and we play a 3-player game. And this player likes to be difficult. So what he did is, instead of going around everything and filling up all the lava tokens, he actually beelined right for the city to speed up the game, and we actually ended up with a lot less cards. So that totally made scoring different. It was a good experience because it shows you how different the game can be played. And then we played one more time. And the last time we played, we actually played with 5 people. The prototype of the game comes with 4 pieces for 4 players, but we played with 5 to see, because we were curious to see how it scales. It scales very well. There's nothing wrong with the way the game does that. We had fun with 5. I want to try it with 6 and 8 as well. I think the game will work. I don't think you're going to need, I mean, where you might have to add another little escape section for your city, just, you know, just use a card or something to make that work. But it was really pretty fun, and it was fast. It was so much faster with 5 people. And the speed actually increases the level of strategy you need in the game. Now, so we can sit here real quick and we can look at the board. You already had an overview of the board, and I didn't talk about it. The art, I think, is very... what's the right word? I wanted to say affluent, and that's not the right word. But the art is fitting for the game. When I look at this, I get a kind of retro look back to the Jetsons from the '60s, and you know, you take all the little city sections of Atlantis, and they're all futuristic, thrown into a volcano area that, to me, lends to the concept of like Southern America, the jungle, and things of that nature. I think they did a really good job with that. There were a couple of things that were going to change, and I don't remember them all. The finals are, I'm sure, in the Kickstarter. The one that I remembered and I really enjoy, and when I do my actual blog post, you can check it out. I'll actually have the picture for the air car there, or you can check it out on their Kickstarter, which I'm sure that's where you're going when you're done, because I don't always come out and say that I'm in, but I'm in on this Kickstarter. I think this is a really good game. Is it going to be a top 100 on Board Game Geek? You know, I don't know enough about the top 100 to tell you whether it will be or not. So thanks for watching. This has been a Kickstarter preview with Matt Lemke from Through Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com.